Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Just Saying Football with Jack and Sean. I'm your host, Sean Gann, alongside my partner, Jack Nicholas. We're here to bring you news, notes, weekly updates, and game analysis of your favorite teams from around the league. Now, the chance, go check out our website, justsayingfootball.com. Follow us on Instagram at Just Saying, no GWJS. And don't forget to get us in your ears on Spotify at Just Saying Football. Buddy, week 7 is now here. Ton of teams on the bye weeks for people out there that haven't changed their fantasy lineups, but we have the Panthers, the Bengals, the Cowboys, the Jets, the Titans, and the Texans. It's 6 teams on bye and a slew of players to go along with that.
Yeah, obviously, like Sean said, obviously adjust your lineup. This is going to be one of the first weeks where we're really going to be feeling the bye weeks. A lot of teams are going to be, kind of adjusting, and we're going to be seeing some really great games this week. You want to kick us out here with the blowoff, Sean?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump right into our blowouts. We're both going the same way on these. We got the Buffalo Bills making the way to New England, take on the Patriots. Buffalo's favored in this one by -8.5. Over under here of 40.5. We're both going with the Bills. But break down this game a little bit for us.
Yeah, well, we saw the Bills obviously play the Giants. Off camera, me and Sean were talking about this. It was, the Bills kind of got figured out. It seemed like they were new, someone knew something about them. But, if anybody's really familiar with them, it is Bill Belichick. And then, New England, this is a tough place to play, but it hasn't really been this year. Buffalo's favored by 8.5. I just got to take them straight up. They look good. James Cook, Stephon Diggs, and Josh Allen seem to be the only thing kind of clicking, but it seems to be enough right now.
No, that's all you really need. And then occasionally they dabble in some Gabe Davis. Hopefully he becomes a little bit more consistent in that offense as the season continues. But Bills have a bounce back game. Patriots have been playing really, really bad all year, giving up just terrible turnovers. Hopefully this hits the over on 40.5 just because they are familiar with each other, but wouldn't be surprised if it goes the under because the Bills defense.
I'm feeling under just because I don't know, like you said, if the Patriots can support their side of that.
Right, Mac Jones with the turnover has been pretty brutal. All right, but moving this along, we have an NFC West matchup. So we have the Arizona Cardinals making their way to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Seattle's favoring this by -8. Over under here of 44.5. We're both going Seattle. Arizona really only a first half team.
Yeah, first half, maybe even just half of the season. This is probably where things start to go downhill for them. Divisional matchup. You got to play in Seattle, one of the tougher places to play. One good thing about the Cardinals this week is they're going to get Kyler Murray back at practice, but Seattle, we kind of saw that, they were really able over the last couple of games to get the offense clicking. Kenneth Walker, I think, is going to be a big problem for the defense this week.
Yep, absolutely. I think right now Arizona, they activated Kyler Murray, which is great. He has a 21-day window to return to practice. Don't know if he'll even get to suit up for the season, though, just because of how late it happened in the year. But, Arizona's just been rough, and you can see with no James Conner, it hasn't been quite the same for them. So I think we'll be looking at post-return for IR. We'll really maybe consider the Cardinals a threat again.
Yeah, but not this week.
Not this week at all. All right, let's move this into our mech categories. We'll jump right into the Pittsburgh Steelers making their way to LA to take on the Rams. Rams are favored in this one by -3, over under here of 44. Karen Williams, though, is not expected to return until week 11. So it's looking like the Zach Evans show currently in LA. What are your thoughts? Pittsburgh coming off the bye.
Yeah, Pittsburgh, they obviously have, TJ Watt in this. He's leading the league in sacks. Right now on the TJ Watt sack counter, he's got 8. This is going to be interesting right now. Both of these teams, they both feel like when you're watching them that they're winning games with their pass rushes and their defense. And you obviously have Watt and now Aaron Donald with the LA Rams. We always talk about him. But to get, I think that it's on the Pittsburgh defense to shut down Matthew Stafford this week because we've been seeing what it's looking like the last 2 weeks with Puka and Kupp. Stafford looks like he's back and fully healthy from that injury last year. Looks like he's 100%, which can be pretty dangerous for a team like Pittsburgh, who tends to have a pretty slow offense. So give me LA by 3, and I'm going to go with the over because I do think that LA is going to score enough points to support it.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying, and for me also, what we've seen from Matt Canada in this offense has just not been great. He doesn't even like when they audible to win games. Steelers won't fire him though midseason. That's not how that organization operates. They don't really fire people midseason. They've also come out with a few reports saying that they won't. So don't expect many changes when it comes to the offensive coordination position and how this offense is going to look, which for me
Yeah.
opens up a lot of opportunities for the Rams. And like you said, Puka and Cooper Cup, it's a great 1-2 combo. Matthew Stafford looks healthy. Despite the Karen Williams injury, they can still throw the ball, and that's where it's going to matter the most.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that it's such a devastating injury because he was such a, he kind of stepped in for what they wanted to do with Cam Akers this year. Now they're doing this. Zach Evans, like you said, hopefully he can kind of step in and get it. But I think the Rams, I would take Matthew Stafford in the 2-minute drive over Kenny Pickett.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. All right, moving this right along. We have the Las Vegas Raiders making their way to Chicago to take on the Bears. Las Vegas favored in this one by -3, over on here of 37.5. I like the under for this one. No DJ Moore, or not DJ Moore. So sorry. No Justin Fields in this one. So it's going to be Tyler Badgett. He looks like an undrafted rookie. He threw an interception. They had a fumble loss for a touchdown against the Vikings. I'll comfortably lock in the Raiders and Brian Hoyer and Devontae Adams.
Yeah, I like that as well. Like you said, pretty simple. No quarterback for either team, but I would trust Brian Hoyer. Over a lot of backup quarterbacks. And right now, Chicago, they're dealing with injuries everywhere. They have no Khalil Herbert. Their offensive line's banged up. Their defense hasn't looked great this year. The Raiders on the road for sure. No problem with taking them by 3 either.
Yep, and Devontae Adams, by the way, great career against them in 16 games, 81 catches, 1,024 yards, and 10 touchdowns. So if you have him this week in your fantasy, I would comfortably start him. All right, moving this along in our meh category, with the Cleveland Browns making their way to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. Browns are favored in this one -2.5, over under here of 40. Still uncertainty around Deshaun Watson's return to the team. The team is uncertain. The players are uncertain. There are reports coming out. Don't really know when he's going to be back, which means it might be PJ Walker again. He's coming off this huge win last week against the 49ers. What are your thoughts, though? Minshew, 3 interceptions against his former Jacksonville Jaguars team.
Yeah, obviously, not a great matchup for Minshew this week with the Cleveland Browns. We were asking last week on the show, are they as legit as a team like the 49ers? I don't know if their offense is, but their defense definitely is. Myles Garrett right now is unstoppable. He is, I believe, second right behind Micah Parsons in Defensive Player of the Year odds right now, really just due to the fact that, he has 5.5 sacks over these first 6 weeks. Again, their defense is still one of the best in the league. They are 5th in points allowed, only allowing about 15 a game. But they haven't scored much over like 20. So as long as Indianapolis can kind of run through Zach Moss, this could be big. Indy is at home, but I'm still going to take Cleveland. I think that what we saw last week is their defense can just win them games.
Yep, I'm also going to go with Cleveland. One thing I should have mentioned at the very beginning of this is that Anthony Richardson is out for the rest of the year. He's getting shoulder surgery now. Instead of opting for it later, which I think is a smart move. Let him get some rest, and hopefully he comes back fully healthy next year, and we can see what he does in year 2. But let's keep this moving along because we have the Washington Commanders making their way to New York to take on the Giants. Washington is favored in this one by -2.5, over under here of 39.5. And I think that the reason why they're favored in this one is it's looking like Daniel Jones is not going to be in for this one in this matchup. What are your thoughts, buddy? This is your team. Normally, Daniel Jones kind of owns Washington. Now he might not be in. Are you feeling comfortable with Tyrod Taylor?
Yeah, Tyrod didn't do too bad last week, but obviously, when you're looking at it, just about 200 yards, he had really a couple opportunities at the goal line, both at the first half and the second half. At the end of the day, your second opponent's really the clock, and when they ran out of time on both opportunities that I felt like they could have scored, losing that game 14-9 in prime time. I will say, excuse me, is the fact that the Giants had 34 rushes on the ground last week in a close game, about 130 yards. They're going to need to do that to keep up with Brian Robinson. Now they're getting Antonio Gibson involved in Washington. Washington's looked pretty good. Sam Howell only 1 interception over the last 3 weeks. So as a Giants fan, this worries me. But I will say the Giants defense kept them in to make Josh Allen make some mistakes last week. I think they could do that with Howell. They're playing at home, divisional opponent. Just give me the Giants straight up.
I also like the Giants in this one. It's been a lot of inconsistency from Washington. What we saw from the Giants defense last week was really impressive to just basically shut down the Bills offense and Josh Allen. Granted, Brian Dable has a lot of familiarity with that team and with that offense, especially. Shows what this defense can do for the Giants and what Wink Martindale can put together on a week-to-week basis. Hopefully the offensive line of the Giants can sort of get better. This will be a tough matchup against Washington's defensive line.
That makeshift offensive line, as Chris Collinsworth kept saying the other day.
But you know what? I think Tyrod Taylor showed some movability around the pocket. He looked comfortable in the offensive system. He threw more deep shots than we've seen from Daniel Jones this season. So hopefully that continues. And that's why I like him in this one. I think this offense with New York potentially has a better passing threshold than what we've maybe seen in the past with
Yeah.
Daniel Jones. But let's not get too much into
I
that.
don't know. It's like and it's funny too because I thought maybe Tyrod would he used to kind of just kind of throw a lot of short passes. I felt like he threw a lot of middle passes. I think Washington's defense is also not to be like underrated.
Yeah, they can win on any given week, and that's for sure. They have, it's all first rounders on the front
Yeah.
four, so you'd
Still.
hope that that's the case. But let's keep us moving along. So we have an NFC South matchup, and the Atlanta Falcons make their way to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. Over under here of 37.5. Buccaneers are favored in this one by -2.5. A lot of numbers I just threw at everyone, I felt like. But the creamsicle jerseys continue to be a curse for them. They did not win last week, Tampa Bay against the Lions. Falcons, though, they had a rough one. I mean, we all saw Arthur Smith's reaction to that interception. Wasn't pretty. Was not pretty.
Neither of these teams are playing great right now. We've been talking about how this division is super open at this time, and it's very weird because not a lot of the teams are great, but somebody's going to have to do it. Right now, Tampa's sitting at the top 3-2, and Atlanta's right behind them, tied with New Orleans, and Carolina's 0-6 at the bottom. So these two teams got to treat this like a very big game. I will take Tampa at home. I like the home team here. They didn't score a lot of points last week, only 6. So I think this week they score a little bit more, but I expect a lot from my man Bijan Robinson this week for sure.
I'm kind of on the opposite because for me, what happened last week and what happened with the Falcons team, Arthur Smith's so dedicated to this run, whether they're winning, whether they're losing, and that's not a problem. It's a great thing when you have a ton of talent that he has in the backfield. But the downfall is that when it was stopped, what we saw from Ritter is that he cannot sit back there and pass the ball and win them the game. That was at home. I said they were going to get the win. He had the 31-0 record at home since high school, and through college, and I jinxed him, and I'm so sorry for that. But to me, Tampa Bay's run defense is still really, really solid. They still have a good front seven. If they're able to shut down Bijan and force us into a passing game only, that's just the recipe for me to them to easily beat the Falcons. We saw that happen last week. Bijan wasn't really able to get started on the ground the way that we've seen so well throughout the entire season. So that to me is like Tampa Bay. That's your bread and butter. Stopping the run and getting after the quarterback, forcing them to pass. So
yeah, I said Bijan 100 yards last week. I think that this is the Tampa defense is really what's going to keep him in. And Mike Evans, I mean, we've seen him have a lot of bounce back games after bad games. He had some terrible drops last week, which is very uncharacteristic of him. So give me Tampa. I think this is a big Mike Evans game. And
I like
Chris Godwin too.
Yeah, maybe even some Kate Otten. Who knows? I don't know.
Kate Otten in there.
Yeah, we're just going to throw out names. All right, moving this right along. Probably our grossest matchup of the week, and I'm not saying that as a Vikings fan. We have the Green Bay Packers making their way to Denver to take on the Broncos. Green Bay's favorite this one. Gross. That is why it's gross. It's because it's the Denver Broncos. But Green Bay's favorite this one by -1. Really weird line. Over under here of 45. Another weird line coming at you. Packers are coming off of the bye. Broncos are coming off of another brutal loss where Sean Payton had to apologize to the offense. And I mean, that has to be hotter than hell. I just can't imagine that the Broncos organization isn't like, what did we do? We sent all these picks and paid all this money, and this is what we're getting in return.
Like in the movie.
We should have.
But yeah, like you mentioned, huge thing. Packers coming off the bye. They kind of needed that with the way Aaron Jones a little banged up, and they played a primetime game. Sean Payton, like you said, we don't know what the heck's going on there. We don't know where all this is coming from, how Russ is getting, to play like this. The Packers are on the road. I think this is an opportunity. Me and Sean were talking about it off camera. If this isn't the opportunity for the Packers to have a game where they're going to win and they're going to perform, it's this one. Pat Surtain, we were talking about it, is going to be matched up on Christian Watson. But what does Jordan Love have? Too many weapons for his own good right now. So expect Luke Musgrave, Jaden Reed, and Romeo Dobbs to be getting involved. Packers defense has not looked that bad. That is going to be a good sign for a bad Russell Wilson day, in my opinion, at home. Right now, Denver 1-5. They're just sitting at the bottom of the barrel of the AFC West. And right now, I mean, Green Bay, they're 2-3. They get this, they're 3-3, and they are couple games behind Detroit. They just got to stay in that mindset right now. So I'm going Green Bay -1, alternate, probably even by 6.5.
Yeah, I'm locking in Green Bay for this one as well. It's to the points you talked about. I think the defense against Russell Wilson and all that gives them a ton of advantage. And then to your point, this defense of the Denver Broncos is so bad outside of Patrick Surtain that whether it's Luke Musgraves, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, you can comfortably start any of these guys in fantasy. They're most likely to have a good game. We haven't seen the Packers put up a ton of points offensively since week 1 against the Bears. They haven't touched that 30 mark since then. They haven't even touched the 25 mark since then. They put up 13 points, against the Raiders. It's the Denver Broncos team that's bleeding points. This is like one of those games. Drop 38 on them, drop 40 on them, drop 30 plus on them, kind of get back on track offensively, build up some confidence. You get right back in the thick of it at 3-3 in this division. You're right behind Minnesota, who's playing the 49ers. They could drop to 2-5. You just jumped right there in the rankings. Yeah, and you don't need to worry about the Bears at the moment. So, for the Packers, this is like a must-win game, but also kind of like a statement win as an offense because how bad the Broncos have been all season. Like if you only show up and you put up 13 points, and you might win 13-9, but trust me, come Monday, everyone's gonna be talking about Green Bay should have put up more points. What was going on? Et cetera, et cetera. And that's not the storyline that needs to be happening for this team at the moment when they could be so much more against the Denver Broncos defense.
Denver Broncos defense. Why one of the most expected disappointments of the year. But Sean, what about something that's not going to disappoint us? What about the fact that we got 3 games of the week this week?
We got some fantastic game of the weeks this week. We're going to jump into our first one. It's the Detroit Lions making their way to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. The Ravens are favored in this one by -3, over under here of 43. Currently, the Detroit Lions boast the best record in the NFL, along with the 49ers and the Eagles and I think maybe one other, but
in Kansas City and Philly. I mean, we're talking about
Kansas City, but our Lions have the best record in football.
They are tied for the best record. And I got to say, it's early. It's weeks, 6 games in. You're going to see some of that, but this is the time, like Sean's point is, they're starting to separate themselves from everybody who's below that right now as division leaders, NFC North champions right now, looking like it. Sean does not like hearing that at all. So we can just talk about the fact that the Ravens are favored while the Lions are this hot. Why do you think that is?
I think it's at home. The Ravens have been playing pretty solid football. And who knows a lot about the Lions that might actually be very helpful for this game is Roquan Smith. He was with Chicago for a handful of years before getting traded over there and signing the huge contract that he rightfully deserved. But he has some familiarity with this organization and what they expect to do.
Yeah.
That being said, the Lions have been playing fantastic. It was a statement win last week against the Buccaneers, where they just didn't really put the pedal off the metal defensively, despite them not really putting up a ton of points offensively. There was a great block by a wide receiver that allowed Amon-Ra to score, which shows that this team is fully committed. They're throwing out big hits. Aiden Hutchinson is playing well. But I'm still leaning towards Baltimore in this one. And for me, what it is Lamar's just played really well all year. His wide receivers have just been, eating too many Butterfingers. And it's been costing them that Rashad Bateman should have been touchdown. We've seen OBJ dropping some very easy passes that he's made 1,000 times throughout his career. And if they can get that back on track and he finds rhythm again with these wide receivers, just be able to catch, it's scary season. Zay Flowers fits really well, got his first touchdown last week. I expect them to kind of continue getting this momentum going.
For me, I'm gonna go Detroit. It's gonna be one of my underdog picks this week. You'll find out the other one later in the show in one of our games of the week. But I'll tell you this, one of my games of the week underdogs here, because literally Detroit, like Sean said, this is going to be a close game, even though Baltimore is hot. But if because of these mistakes, there is something that causes Lamar to make these mistakes, the lack of the run game doesn't let them catch up and they got to pass. Goff last week, they won that game pretty fairly. He still threw 44 passes. I think that is how they get him. So I'm going to go Lions underdogs, but not really underdogs, just Vegas underdogs.
Only Vegas underdogs. And one thing, again, I should notice at the very beginning, David Montgomery will be out this game. and just some things to consider. They have a bye week in 2 weeks with the rib cartilage injury. Rib
Yeah.
injuries are weird. I broke both of mine. You just can only like rest. Like
Yeah.
it's not like an arm or a leg
take
where you can like
time.
set it. Yeah, you just have to like take time. So with the bye week coming up in 2 weeks, it's potentially misses this week, he misses next week, and then it's bye week. So if you have him on your roster, fantasy wise, just keep that in mind. And if you're a Jahmyr Gibbs owner,
Yeah.
the next 2 weeks, exciting times for
Yeah.
you finally.
I think that's awesome, and it's a huge opportunity too. I think for like Sam Laporta, you see that they had to start throwing like nonstop last week.
44 passes, like you said.
You think he gets more yards than Mark Andrews?
No. Roquan Smith, great cover corner or great cover linebacker, cover corner. Long day, everyone.
Mark Andrews is going to go off. You think? I mean, it's going to be Andrews versus Alonzoni. That's going to be an interesting one.
I like Mark Andrews. Look, it's not. I mean, it could be like 44 to Mark Andrews and 24 to Laporta. I'm not saying Mark Andrews is going to have like 110 and Laporta is going to have like 50.
No, I mean, they'll probably have like 50, 60.
Yeah, I like that. All right, moving this right along. We have the Miami Dolphins making their way to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. Philly's favoring this one by -2.5 and over under here of 50. Eagles took a huge loss last week to the Jets. Really surprising to everyone. Hurts, is he struggling? What's going on?
I think it's just we've talked about the Jets defensive line and how they have just kept their team in games. I think last week the Jets corners, they had a great game plan against Philly. It was really, they had their top 4 secondary guys out. All of the other guys stepped up, played to the scheme. But I will say, the Eagles, they're great at adjusting. They're going to adjust this week to Miami. Miami is one of the best game day teams in the league right now. This right now, highest over under the weekend at 52. Hammer it. Both of these teams' offenses are better than their defense. Maybe Philly, but Miami's defense is going to give up points, and they're just going to have to score right back. I think it's going to be a huge game.
No, it's going to be definitely the highest scoring one, I think, of the weekend. And some injury news. Lane Johnson went down last week, and it was a huge factor in part of the Eagles' loss. Like you said, great defensive line. We said it since last year on this show. Jets have a playoff-ready caliber defense. Like, they are ready for the playoffs, this defense. They play at a really high level. They can change the course of a game, as we've seen time and time again. Kansas City a few weeks ago, despite the refs, and now with the Eagles this past week.
Yeah. Making Jalen Hurts throw the ball. He got picked off twice. Critical moments.
Exactly. And I think for Miami, what we've seen is for their Jalen Ramsey coming back opens up that 21-day practice window.
21-day window for Jalen Ramsey. If you forgot that the Miami Dolphins, they've been so good. If you forgot they also have Jalen Ramsey who hasn't been there yet.
Here's your reminder.
Reminder. It's just getting real.
But for me, what I'm looking at with this team is Miami's offense has been fantastic all season. Mostert 3-touchdown game. That's his second 3+ touchdown game of the season already. He's dominating it. Hill is only 186 yards away from 1,000 yards. All right, I don't know if people really understand that. Like 186 yards. We're in week 7. All right. If he gets 104.5 yards average per game, he will break the NFL record. All right.
This show over the first 6 weeks, that is cake.
All right. This is easy. This will be easy for him. He basically has too many weeks to do this at this pace. But what I'm looking at in this one, and it's why I'm going to go with the Eagles here. It just comes down to the defenses and which defenses can make a stop when push comes to shove. What we saw against the Bills versus Miami game is that when they were going after Tua, when they were shutting things down early on, they could not make that change back to it. And I think that this Eagles defense should never have been able to have been allowed to draft Jalen Carter. It was complete and total BS. But their front seven is really, really solid. Jalen Carter is not playing like a rookie. Jordan Davis is playing fantastic in year 2. They still have Fletcher Cox. To me, if I had to say when it's 35-35 and one team just needs to make a stop, I'll lean towards this Philly crowd that has the Philadelphia Phillies also playing in the playoffs and are just electric right now. That home crowd supporting that defense when they're playing Miami. Like if Miami doesn't go out there and it's not 14-0 by the end of the first quarter, I think it's going to be a really long day. Like they got to jump out and they got to jump out early and they're the team to do it. But if it doesn't happen, man, that's the Eagles recipe. I think like this home crowd's going to be electric. They got the team in the playoffs. They're coming off this loss against the Jets.
Yeah.
They can't lose again. It will be unacceptable. Like there's so many things right now that I feel like if you're the Eagles team and you lose this game, your fans are going to be furious. So you're playing for them right now.
I think right now, October right now, it's pretty sunny in Philly, and it's pretty nuts, how they're dominating. Their team and their city is living right now. But I'm going to tell you right now that me and my boy Mike McDaniels and his sweatsuit, we're going to be pulling out to Philly, and they're going to be making sure their defense is ready because they prep like that. But I'm going to say, these are two awesome coaches, two awesome offenses. It is going to come down to the defense. But I'm going to tell you right now, Darius Slay, I respect you. You're a great player, but you are not going to be covering Tyreek Hill this weekend, bro. He's going off. Give me Tyreek Hill a touchdown. Give me him 7 catch. Give me him. I genuinely think he needs to make a statement. Like Sean said, he wants to get that 1,000 yards right now. I think when the offense runs through him, you can't really you have to take the top off. That makes a lot of people in the defensive line be able to shift out, not rush as many people. I think Tua is going to have he just has to air the ball out because they're not going to be able to run as much with Mostert against the D-line, like you said. But I'm expecting the DeAndre Swift game too. So, hopefully Miami needs to get out in front because the Eagles are able to maintain these drives for so long. And that's all.
Yeah, they are. And also, one thing to note, Eagles' second best run defense in the league, only giving up 65 yards a game currently. Mostert's having this hot start, like we mentioned. Obviously, Devon Achane on the IR, but they can make this one-dimensional. It'll be interesting. I mean, one-dimensional with the Dolphins. They're like, oh, no, we got to pass. That sucks. So it might not be the best thing, but will be fun to watch. Definitely a game of the week for sure. And I'll happily take the over on 52 very comfortably. All right, now moving
hammer it and let that ride. Just watch it and watch it go up.
Watch it and enjoy. Just sit back, have a soda or beer or water, whatever is your choice, and enjoy that game and that score just going up because it's going to be a good one. And in our last game of the week, we have the Los Angeles Chargers making their way to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. Kansas City is favored this by -5.5 over under here of 48. KC won again, some questionable calls potentially. But Mahomes is 7-2 against the Chargers in his career. Herbert 2-4. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I just got to say this is one of the more not talked about enough rivalries because it's starting to get hot now. There's not a lot of things. There's the Steelers Ravens and there's the Bears Packers. There's the Eagles and the Cowboys. There's a lot of great rivalries in the NFL. Something that's heating up the last 3 years is this Justin Herbert, Pat Mahomes game. They are in Arrowhead, obviously. Kansas City is favored. We saw LA obviously brokenhearted last week from that loss against Cowboys. But I gotta say, in the last 5 matchups, it's pretty much just been one possession games, even though Kansas City's won the last 3. Just hear me. Mahomes is 7-2 against the Chargers. The only person who's ever beat him in this Chargers uniform has been Justin Herbert, and it has to be Justin Herbert. With that, I'm going with the Chiefs at Arrowhead. I just want to talk about how awesome this rivalry has been.
It's been one of the best ones that we've seen recently, and I think people forget, but like last year was like week 3, very early on in the season. Chargers are driving. Gerald Everett just had this huge gain, and he's breathing heavy, and all of a sudden they drop back. They're running the hurry up. Herbert tries to dump it off to him one more time, but he was too tired. He didn't chase down the guy. I don't think he would have caught him anyway, even if he tried to catch him. He was shot. You could see him breathing so heavily.
Yeah.
I cannot express this enough. But KC wins on a pick 6. Like, to your point about these one possession games, like it has come down to this like insane kind of ending when it comes to these one possession games. But for me, the Chargers just have really bad luck. Yeah. And I feel that bad luck as a Vikings fan. I'm going with Kansas City. But like last week, we just saw them just, they're so close in this game against Dallas on Monday night, and they just couldn't get it together. Like they just couldn't find a way to get the points that they needed. And it's just, it was a sack and it was a bad ball. And it was just,
it's so many things. Every element of the game that you love gets encompassed in these two like quarterbacks playing and how the defense had to prep for them. And the whole thing really is that I think, the way Keenan Allen's playing, this year compared to last year. I don't believe they had Keenan Allen last year against Chiefs. He is gonna, have a great game. Kelsey last year, though, you were talking about another heartbreak. Last year, one of the matchups, 13 seconds left. Boom, Kelsey right there. And it happens. The Chiefs at home winning. They haven't lost since they lost that first game at home in the first game against the Lions, and they are not losing at home again this season. I'm just going to say it now. Don't worry about it because they don't have any hard games at home, and they can beat the Chargers. The 5.5 is interesting though, but
I agree. I agree with everything but the at-home ones. I gotta double check their schedule before I can comfortably be on you with that one. But I do like them to beat the Chargers in this one. Mahomes plays like slightly down, and again, slightly down for Mahomes is 252-1. Normal quarterback, that's a great line. That's a solid line. You're playing the game of football pretty well. But for Patrick Mahomes, as we all know, that's not good enough. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to let everybody know too. When I said that, I was also looking at the schedule, referencing the fact that when the rest of the games they have at home: Miami, Philly, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Las Vegas.
I can comfortably say two of those
games are going to get tougher.
I feel like Cincy and Raiders, I can put like comfortable W's right now for some weird reason. But Bills, Eagles, Miami. That's a tough slew of games they got.
Those are games
up
for other weeks.
Yeah, we'll be getting there in the future because that's all the time that we have today, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you everyone for listening. Don't forget, 6 teams on a bye this week. Get your lineups done now.
Yeah. Any Jaguars, Saints players, take them out of your flex box.
Yeah, do not keep those guys. Do not keep Thursday night football players in your flex box. They should never ever be in there. Okay, never.
And like Sean said, thank you guys always checking us out. We got videos coming for you every week. Just Saying Football, Just Saying No G, WJS on Instagram for all the updates, and Just Saying Football on YouTube and Spotify. Get us in your ears. Thanks for listening.
Enjoy.